Awesome. Hi guys. I need the yes. Right. Okay. Hello, welcome. Hello. Hi. Woo! Everybody on Zoom. Hello. So I am very excited to talk about startups and game design and everything that has to do with starting a business. Doesn't necessarily only mean startups. It means everything, whether you're trying to work at a studio. I'll get into that in a second. But before that, my name is Jeron Artest. I am Jeron Artest, founder and CEO of Testar Labs. We're a experimental game studio in development of Ghosty Battle for the Bones. I'll get into that after, actually. But before that, who am I? I used to actually play basketball, won a championship, made my first game when I was 13. I played at UC Irvine, and then I transferred to USC because Jay Corn, we were doing some game jams together, and he said, "Hey, you should transfer." And so I said, "Yeah, sure. Honestly, let me apply." And then I got in, and now here I am. And now here I'm not. Because I founded Testar Labs with my co-founder Emily and my co-founder Jake Horn, and we set out on a mission to try to change the games industry in our own unique way. So before, on top of that, I also worked at this interned at a venture firm called Griffin Gaming Partners. Managed 1.2 billion in funds straight up in gaming infrastructure and game studios. So I feel like I have a lot of information to try to get out to you all in the next hour or so. Yeah, so on top of that, we've been making this game, Ghosty Battle for the Bones. It's a top-down fighting game with MOBA juggling elements. We're trying to be unique, but the main point is we were able to raise some VC and angel funding and get into Techstars, one of the top startup accelerators. I think Scopely went through it in their early days as an example of gaming studios. So we're in that network and learning so much on how to be not just builders and developers, but a games company coming from like a startup stage. And so yeah, you can also like sign up for our pre-alpha testing and at ghosty.testarlabs.com. We're trying to get our wait lists up, get our KPIs and OKRs up. I'll get into that in a second as well. So what I've really learned this past year, we started the company in January 20th, 2022. And I've learned that startups are a challenge and you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your mental health a lot. That's priority number one. Next is you got to do what you love. Just do it. The fourth thing I learned is you got to find your market early as possible and talk to your customers. Our customers as game developers are players. So you got to talk to your players. And you know what the best thing is that we get to do this. We're experiencing this because we do play tests all the time. We know everybody. We know what we want as gamers as well. So we have a lot of intuition in that case. But you got to talk to your customers. Next thing that we just learned this past like month or 2 months ago, you got to track everything. That means all your data, just track everything. Don't lose track of it. I'll get into that in a second. Next thing the next thing is that I'll talk about is different types of deals and funding. And the last thing is it's all about the team. So on top of that, this discussion is for everybody. Whatever you're trying to do, whether you're trying to start a studio, start a game publisher, start a tooling infrastructure, or just work at a studio, whether it's AAA to AA or indie, you should understand everything that I'll be talking about today. So the first part, startups are challenging. I think another thing to think about is every game is almost like a startup. Every game that we develop is almost a startup, and maybe we go through this every single time we're developing a game. You start off and you get that like really exciting like moment. You're like, oh wow, this is gonna be amazing, and then all of a sudden you just like tank. But that's that happens to everybody. Startups, anything is always a challenge, and you just got to get through it. And that goes into like why that's okay. Like we're as game developers, we're probably the most well equipped people for the startup world or any type of any creator any creator world, startup world especially. We know how to test our market with playtests. We're natural content creators. That's a lot of what a lot of other people find difficult, and we're also very versatile. And because of that, like startup curve, you have to take care of yourself. This is the one thing that I've heard from multiple founders over and over again, including Mark Merrill, including um, just general founders everywhere. They always just talk about your mental health because that's the one thing that you could transfer over across anything that you're trying to do. So take care of yourself in any way possible. Do anything you can, whether it's play a game, read a book, get some sun. Self-care is crucial. You got to be able to just figure out what you can to re-energize yourself. And on top of that, if you can't find the time to re-energize yourself, at least just do what you love. So if you don't love it, find someone else who does because somebody probably does. But the main reason why you would want to do what you love is because you'll be able to maintain your energy levels. You won't be burnt out. You know, I think we've all been through that moment of burnout, and it's probably because we don't feel as inclined to keep on going. But if you keep on focusing on what you love, you'll be able to get through that stage and out of that trough of sorrow. And yeah, you'll effectively work and all that. Also, you got to prioritize yourself before you could prioritize your team so that you could prioritize your team. And yeah, the other thing that I learned is really to just do it. You don't wait for anything. Don't like spend too much time thinking about stuff or arguing or if you're getting like caught into this like circular debate, just kind of take note of it. Just try to execute as fast as possible. Don't yeah, just do it. Yoda says it well. Try not, do or do not. There is no try. You just gotta go for it. Just do it. And yeah, the next thing that I wanted to mention was to find your market early because one thing that we took for granted was marketing is very important, especially when you're trying to hit a market and not just for yourself. So you got to test the market, and that'll just save you so much time, save you so much money, and it'll clarify what you're making, that it has an audience, and this could be grassroots or organic. Grassroots meaning like doing in-person events or playtest events and stuff like that to gauge the want for what you're making. And so one of like some of the people that have done this well, I respect Spookalele and Weston for like really hitting this home. Like they just do this so well. So yeah, you want to do this as early as possible. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions so far? Anything? If anything, especially on Zoom, just ask questions in the middle of what I'm talking about, if there are any. So the next thing that I wanted to touch on is track your data. OKRs and KPIs are your lifeblood. What are OKRs and KPIs? Those are your objectives and key results. So I think we do this a lot as game developers, but we don't necessarily do this for the business or the market that we're trying to go after. Sometimes we might leave it to our publisher, but if you're trying to self-publish or self-develop a game, you kind of got to take this into your own head. So OKRs are your high-level mission-based goals and results to help you stay focused. And these are the main drivers of your business. The next thing is your key performance indicators. These are like the lower level day-to-day reflection of what your business is doing. It's not necessarily like the high-level path. It's what's getting you to that goal. And you could always reflect and reevaluate what this is periodically all the time. So I have some examples from our own OKRs and KPIs. We are constantly reevaluating this and every day and every week, every month, and we have to record this every week. So some of what we're trying to do here with Ghosty is be the fastest growing IP in the industry, have Ghosty Battle for the Bones be the best mobile gaming experience, and then have everybody on our team be someone that we could trust. And so we track this with very specific key results, and then we use our KPIs to see if we're reaching those key results, or see like what we could adjust, what tasks we could assign or do to directly to directly reach those key results and hit our objectives. And so this is very, very important, because for ourselves, we could easily track where we need to adjust and where we need to improve and optimize our gains. And for investors, whether they're publishers, VC investors, or angel investors, they can see proof for why they should invest in you. And so on that note, there's tons of different ways to get funded. Also learned this past year. There's just so many different ways. If you're making your own game, you could go in any of these routes. You could either bootstrap and self-fund your game. That's a lot of like what a lot of us do, first of all. But there's also a ton of grants. You could also win prizes from game jams and hackathons. You could get invested by angel investors, get some venture capital funding, or corporate investment or acquisition. Those are all equity-based, and that means they'll own part of your studio or company, depending on what you're doing. And then you could also get royalty funds for publishers. The royalty funds thing is actually very interesting. I only learned about this recently. There's a company called Double Jump Capital that invests in late stage royalty funds. So they'll take they'll inject capital into a game that's already out, but only for a rev share. And that's like sort of a publisher model, but they're not publishing the game because the game is already published, but it's like extra capital for the game just to get their money back quick, or like however extra capital there is. Yeah, any questions on that actually?
Can you talk more about angel investors?
Yeah. So angel investors could vary from your friends and family, or just people who were in the industry and were very successful, that had a big exit or a big IPO, or just like, they just kind of have money sitting around that they want to invest. Because if you just have money sitting around,
Could you talk about the pros and cons of, let's say, publishers versus, let's say, other grants or funding? And could you talk about the best way to get, the right type of funding for the company startup that you want to make?
Yeah. So let me finish Rocco's question really quick. Basically, it's also addressing your question. When you're looking for investors, angel investors, you typically want your angel investor to be someone who has done what you've done, so that they're more than just money. So that they could help you execute everything that you can't necessarily execute yourself. For us, we need somebody who's like good at marketing or something like that, or other things that's stuff that we're missing specifically. So like whenever you get an angel investor, somebody who's been in your shoes before, that like resonates with your mission, that is able to contribute more. And on your question, if you want to, there's a bunch of different ways to fund your game. What's the best way? I guess I'll start with the differences. So publishers, I'm honestly not even well versed with publishers, but from what I know, they take a rev share and they publish your game. So they put a lot of effort between marketing, and they might also take a deal where they take your IP and they own it outright, or they own your studio directly, and that's it. That's sometimes what a publisher will do. Oftentimes there's like an exclusive agreement where you have to go to your publisher first before you could even try to go to another publisher, and they have to agree to that. And that's one. The other way is to try to form your own studio and get like go indie, but still have funding to directly to just like actually build and not just bootstrap and eat ramen all day. So the route we're taking is kind of interesting. It's more startup based. We started with angel investors and a venture capital firm, and that'll lead us to more venture capital to go into either corporate investment or acquisition by a big company such as NetEase, Tencent, or anything else. Yeah.
Could you talk about the what not to do for raising, especially from
Yeah. So, there's a lot of not to dos. You should not come in empty handed or without any like traction per se. I'll go into this as well. You need to have your like you have to have your team. You have to have a vision that's like bigger than anything like that. That gives them a reason to invest, whether it's your creativity or your like experimental nature or something. It's got to be stuff like that. Is that an answer? Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of not to dos. Um, it goes back to like track everything pretty much for me. That's something that we actually missed. It's you gotta have all your KPIs and everything laid out that show your growth. If you're trying to raise from venture, if you're trying to raise from angels, you could have more of a vision and try to deliver that to them so that you could raise from them.
I'm not sure if this is a question, but I just thought it was really interesting that you'd have to that it's important to like focus on those stuff, especially starting out. Because I guess I always thought like, the vision and stuff like that is important. But like having the stats, like how important is that like early on? Like
Early on, it, there's different stages of a company. So you got a pre-seed stage company, you got a seed stage company, and you got a like Series A company. Is just like each step that you reach. Um, do I go into this? Yeah. So over here, it's not important. Like you're just trying to test it out for yourself. Over here, like you still want to keep tracking it. It gets more and more important as you keep going further because the stats reflect how much money you're going to generate and return to your investor. So um, around your seed stage, even leading into your seed stage, you want to have something. It doesn't have to be, especially in games, it's really hard to like show the target you're hitting because they take longer to develop, but you could show other traction such as your social media following, your marketing. A lot of people pre-test their market and like pre-sell something before it's even in development. There was this game studio that made a VR MMO game. They got into Y Combinator. It's a big accelerator, and all they did when they got in was make a website to sell like pre-sales, and that's all they needed to prove that what they're making is something that people want. And then that led to them raising a $4 or $5 million round at the end of the program. Yeah, does that answer? Okay. But yeah, it just keeps on getting more and more important. Like your stats, your KPIs, your OKRs, they keep on getting way more important as you move forward because like as you see the profit, it's just going to keep on going down. But if you could show that there's even one inkling of proof that it's going to skyrocket, you'll return the money back. Yeah, lastly, it's all about the team. It's really all about your team before you even have a product, before you have anything. Thank you, guys, team. But yeah, like on one of your guys' notes, like what do you do before you even have any stats or anything? All you can really do is have a team that has maybe done it before, is like really talented, comes from here, such as USC Games, or comes from another school, or has done stuff before that shows that they can develop this out and that they can execute on their plans. and on their insight. So on top of that, if you have a strong team, you'll have a strong product. That's like, I feel like we all know this. We build teams all the time making a game. We like to work with people who can do their like respective jobs really well. And on top of that, investors fund teams and not products. That's something that we've learned as well. They will always fund a team before they fund a product. That's something that has been repeated in our brains every time we like get feedback or anything that like you gotta have your team straight. And then the same should go for you. You should invest in your team as well, because you're investing in your team. You'll have great results. Yep. So to recap, startups are a challenge. You got to take care of yourself. You got to do what you love and just do it. And you got to find your market early. Talk to your customers, track everything, your OKRs and KPIs. And there's so many different ways to fund your game, different types of deals and funding. I could go deeper into that as well if you'd like. And lastly, it's all about the team.
Yeah, how can like for me, I come from like a game developer background. How can I, let's say, go and seek for funding if I don't have so much knowledge and experience of marketing? And how can I put myself in a good position where I guess investors will like to work with me and stuff like that?
In that case, you find the person that does, and then you sell to them first, so that you guys together could sell to the investor. That's the best way. Or you somehow figure it out and prove it out yourself that you just did it. You just do it and like show that you are capable of doing it yourself.
Could you talk about difficulties of raising and getting funded as a young?
Yeah. So it's really hard to raise money as a young team because a lot of the time people are looking for experience, 20 plus years of experience, 10 plus years of experience. Like investors want to invest in people who have done it before because they're risk averse. They want people who have done it before. So it's actually pretty hard unless you've done it before. Like some people have 10 plus years of experience sometimes even if they're like 23. So it gets really difficult, and so you have to like find the people who really believe or in the vision and the insight that you have. Some people do. There's actually a lot of people who do, and honestly, more than even though it's hard to raise while being young, there's so many people who want to support you because you're young and because they see something in themselves in you like when they were younger. And so if you could tap into that, we've been able to get a lot of support from mentors, some of the professors, some other people in the industry. Now we're in Techstars. So it's like tap into the people who want to support you and surround yourself with everybody who's done it before, and you'll be able to like get past that experience barrier that sometimes is set by an investor.
Question. So what strategies do you think that you did that made your team succeed or on the path to success?
Yeah, we're taking we're still very early, so we're trying to take a very experimental approach. I think that's one of our advantages. Instead of trying to be a cookie cutter copycat of other companies, our specific advantage has been in our experimental nature and trying to like be disruptors, be somebody who can like flip the switch or flip the games industry upside down. So that's not something that a lot of studios necessarily want to do. But I think that's been part of our success.
I think our company values exist.
Yeah, so we have 3 company values. It's innovation, fearlessness, and change. Those are our core company values. That's something that we've driven home and like want to. I think that like at the core of it all, that's what drives our success. Steven.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm working right now for a startup as a level designer. We're finishing up our MVP, and a lot of the VCs who we're talking to, which is the primary source of funding that we're looking at, are asking to see the MVP. Like we're sharing our deck or we're introducing ourselves. And I'm just wondering, because that seems really positive to me. This is the first startup I've worked for. So, do you have any experience with what that means specifically when an investor asks to see the MVP?
Yeah, that's really good. That's the next step that you want. So typically, you go through a first meeting. It's an intro call. If they ask for your MVP, that means they are interested because they won't waste the time to play it or mess with it. Like they want to see if there's something there, and that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could tell us like, that sounds like a fighting MOBA thing, and I'm curious.
Yeah. So our company's game is a top-down fighting game with MOBA jungling elements. What that means is you can think of it like Smash Bros. And League of Legends jungle. And if it was top-down, had a baby, they made a mobile game. That's like the type of game that we're making. On top of it, it's championless. There's no champions or heroes. You play as these ghosties, and you equip bone parts to give yourself abilities. And um, that part's magical because they're they're able to be swapped. So you could mix and match and swap your bone parts to uh, to like create your own builds. So there's like by the time we have 20 different bone sets, there's 8,000 different builds that you could possibly play as and play as directly. We're using like procedural animation to make that not have to do 40,000 different animations. So we only have to do like 60 if we have 20 bone sets. That's the game. Yeah, you can sign up for playtests. I wanted to get that. Yeah, if you scan the QR code, we'd really appreciate the playtest. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Question: how do you guys develop the courage, or like, what decisions or things that you guys had that made you confident enough to start your own startup?
Yeah. I think for me, I've always wanted to start my own startup. I'm fortunate enough to have the support from my family to just let me go ahead and try to start a startup. Um, our team, Emily's fearless and courageous. She is awesome. Jay Corn is extremely talented. Like the team that we have is what gives me the courage to continue and try to build this startup because when we work together, it's like we just win. like we just win things, get dubs. Yeah. So honestly, I think it's just over the year especially we've we just built up a lot of courage. Honestly, it was scary at first, but yeah.
So I have a question about like funding. So when you're deciding like where to get funding from, like because you can go for like the venture capitalist route or like the corporate investment, but then if you go for corporate, there's always both have like the pros and cons. How do you like pick which one to go for?
Yeah, so the biggest advice that I've heard is just take whatever money comes at you. Like that's the main thing. But if you have both, the option of having both at your doorstep or like figuring out what you want to target, it's honestly venture capital and corporate investment have a lot of overlap because it's equity based or acquisition based. You would go to a venture capital firm if you needed some extra capital and you wanted to get acquired later to have a 400 $500 million exit or something. Or you could just have your bootstrap studio and then get acquired. There's just so many different paths. I think one example is also Riot. Riot Games, they got acquired like early on, like 3 years I think into their game studio, but they only raised they did raise venture funding first, and then they got acquired by Tencent. The okay, yeah, wait. The pros and cons. So I also wanted to say a lot of people also say like you want to get not get rid of as much equity as possible. You want to save as much equity as you can so that you have the most value and the most stake in the company. Um, so a lot of times you want to try to go for that non-dilutive funding. That means stuff that doesn't take hold of your company. Stuff like the bootstrapping, bootstrap as far as you can. It's not going to last a while, but do it as long as you can. Grants as well. There's a lot of grants, and then hackathon awards and such. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those sources of funding we're looking at is venture capitalists, and they have a method I've never seen before where to minimize risk, they don't lead rounds, but they
Yeah.
will do funding later on. And I've never heard of that before, and I was just wondering if you had any experience with that.
We've had a lot of experience with that. So, in our first, uh, I'll tell the story really quick. So, we when we first started, there life was good. A lot of the market was raising a lot of money, and we kept seeing like $20 million rounds, $50 million rounds, and we were like, yeah, we could do this. So we went to our first pitch. We raised, or we didn't raise. We asked for a $15 million raise at a 150 million valuation, and we had nothing. We had nothing, and so they, it was really silly. But then after that, we kept on lowering, and each pitch that we had, it was always like, oh yeah, we'll follow Warren, but we won't lead, and that just means like there usually honestly funds. There's a lot of funds that won't lead because they don't have enough capital to expose themselves like that. So they'll take the index of a big fund investing because they know there'll be a follow-on and another follow-on after and after, leading to an acquisition because there's a history with that big fund doing that. Whereas with their fund, if they lead, it's unlikely that they'll be able to move forward. So they try to get deal flow from those other funds that lead. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you go further into like what it looks like to raise or ask funds for money? So like those funding rounds, what are you doing?
Mhm.
What are you
Yeah, so while I was at Griffin, I learned the process. I learned the process. It starts with trying to get the leads. So you want to start trying to get a lead to an investor. So you start with this like whole dashboard of investors, or if you don't have that, you start with one person who knows the investors, and then it just kind of like trickles out like that. Once you get some pitches, you'll go through your first pitch as a lead with that fund. If you get a follow up, you're a qualified lead. So then that makes you like they want to see your pitch, your MVP. They want to see your traction, go through some of the stuff that's like deeper into the business and less than the vision, or yeah, like lower level than the vision. And then after that, they'll go into a diligence phase. That means they're diving into your like company's documents. That means all your equity agreements, the IP agreements if you've signed like an IP deal with somebody, your all the legal stuff and this crazy it's kind of crazy to go through that because it takes so much time. Sometimes it could take 2 weeks to like 3 months. I think on average right now because funds move slow is 3 months of like this diligence process trying to make sure there's nothing like there's no lawsuits. There's like it's like a background check, and then after that it goes into negotiations. And so you might have told them you want to raise like $2 million at a 20 million valuation. Um, maybe they're like they come back at you and they're like, okay, so we'll invest 2 million, but it has to be at a 15 million valuation. They want to try to get more, and so it goes into this negotiation part. If they're interested, at least that if they go into this, that means they're really interested. And so you got to like try to stand your ground, use other companies that have raised as your leverage and your anchor point to like prove why you should be raising that at that valuation. Then after that, you get the money. You sign the papers, you sign the agreements. But there's so many different agreements as well. I'll go into that after. You sign the agreements, and eventually they wire the money. It should be like wired. immediately. Sometimes it takes a while, and then sometimes the funds will actually break the agreement and not do it. But that's a bad practice. So you probably wouldn't want to work with a fund like that. And that's like the whole process. On the different types of agreements and different types of ways to raise, you could do a priced round that was normal before, but now you could also use a safe note, which is that's much more standard, especially for early stage companies. That lets investors invest with only like a 2-page document instead of having to go through the SEC and register shares with like a 40-page whatever the hell. So like that's really the easiest way. You use that with your angel investors, use that with early stage venture funds. It's a what's it called? It's a safe note. It's a agreement for future equity, stock agreement for future equity. Because after that it goes like you use the safe note and it's set at like a valuation cap. I could go into that too, but there's just differences. Yeah.
You go into that.
Okay, yeah, I'll go into it. Okay, so you got on a safe note, you got a valuation cap, and say you raised on a valuation cap of 10 million. Now that means it's not your actual set valuation of the company because it's not a priced round. Your shares are not valued at $10 million, but that's where the investors will get their like shares valued at once you do raise a price round, probably during your Series A. And so the situation there, math and monetary wise, is you raised your 1 million, 10 at a 10 million valuation cap, and then you go to your Series A, raise a 20 million price round. That means it is the 10 million is capped. That how do I describe that? If it makes sense, it's like that's as much as the valuation will be for that investor. They won't be able to get shares at 20 million unless they buy into the round. Whereas now if you raise a down round and you raise at a 10 million valuation cap, and then you got a $5 million priced round, the investor actually gets their shares for $5 million valuation. And so if you think about it this way, it's actually like, let's say I invested again the 1 million at 10 million valuation. That's 10% of the company. Technically, if you raise over the 10 million valuation cap. Now, if I didn't raise it over the 10 million valuation cap and raise it at 5, that means I got 20% of the company because I raised 1 million. So it's like it's really flexible for the investor to feel a little bit more comfortable if you raise it down round because they'll get more shares and move on past that. There's a lot more that goes into that as well because you could also offer a discounted price on the next round, and that means instead of offering a valuation cap, you could offer no cap and just say you get this for like 30% less, no cap. Yeah. So you could offer like a sale. It's just a sale for the shares, or you could even do a combination of both, having 10 million and a 30% discount. So it's like this combo basically. And yeah, you could look it up, Google it. It's a Y Combinator safe. So just the letter Y Combinator and then safe. And that's kind of the standard right now for early stage companies, startups specifically. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of different side, getting apart from the financial side of things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you guys found your
Mhm. Yeah, we're still finding our market. Like we're still pre-seed trying to get to that stage that we have found our market. It's it's like over here you have no product market fit. It's what it's called. You're just like trying to prove your vision has a market. And then over here is when you like ship the game. You're here, uh, you're shipping the game, trying to like soft launch or do stuff like that. And that's when you're trying to find product market fit. And that's like the story of it. Whereas over here, then you're like now trying to just scale and hit like I think it's growth market fit or something. You're just trying to like take that market and then boost it, like just make it explode basically. And for us, we're trying to take you got to like start with an existing market. You want to start with for us we're starting with like mobile market and starting with like fighting game market and trying to see if there is a want for that type of mashup within a different market. Maybe it forms a new market. Maybe it's like we take a share of that market. But that's we're in the proving stage of that all.
Could you talk about the specific things that would, I guess, to find that market right now?
Yeah. So to find that market, we're doing marketing. we got to do marketing. We're actually doing some of that grassroots marketing, hosting in-person events. It's just like play testing. You want to play test and see if there are people that want to that find the game fun that like that want to play, right? And then yeah, you could also do some paid ads and try to test the market like that. For us, we're trying to do TikTok. We're testing the market with TikTok to see if like our visuals resonate with the industry, with the market, and if our gameplay and if our gameplay will attract players to come in and at least test the game out once. And yeah, Discord events as well. So it's just like trying to do everything and anything that you can to test the market. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're gonna hold like playtest events if you signed up and then and stuff like that. Yeah.
Could you talk about how that leads into KPIs?
Yeah. So that leads into KPIs. If we're since we're testing the market, we have to record how many people are actually that we're getting from TikTok into our website for signups, or how many people we are getting into our Discord from the in-person events. And we have to record that each week and see if there's growth or any correlation related to that. And so it's stuff that we can do personally that reflect what if we're hitting a market. So it all ties in together. It's like you want to try to take action and execute something to get that indicators such as followers, views, downloads, retention, all that stuff to yeah to prove your market out. It's different. It's kind of interesting for games because like I was saying, it takes a while to launch your game. So you could do a lot of marketing beforehand to just see if the market's there and then hold off for a second while you're developing the game. And then once you launch the game is when you're like really actually testing and seeing a lot of things if the market's like actually going to stay there, because now once the game's launched, it's all about retention. It's also different actually. This is for like free to play games. It's all about retention. For games that are premium, it's all about your marketing and how many people you could get waitlisted and downloaded once you reach like past the critical mass. But oh, and then it's also like your Metacritic scores and all that. Like it all plays into that, right? But yeah, like all that stuff is just important. It all ties in together. Another thing I wanted to note was there's a bunch of different ways to start a business, or like a bunch of different ways to approach your business. There's different business models. There's a B2B model, which is business to business. There's a B2C model, which is what we do as game developers most of the time, which is business to consumer. And then there's a B2G model that doesn't really matter. That's business to government. But that's a huge upside. But anyways, I wanted to say that there's actually an option for you to go from B to C or B to B to C, because there's this company called Coherence. They're making a multiplayer network engine, and it was actually founded by the guys who made Inside and Limbo. Super sick. Like the guy who developed Inside and Limbo just saw an issue and said, "I'm going to take my my expertise in running a company and my passion for everything else and try to change the multiplayer networking space." And that's what he did. So like he went from B to C as a game developer, just like trying to make hit after hit with Inside and Limbo and going forward like that, to just changing it all up and go business to game studio. There's like so many different ways to start a business in the games industry. It doesn't just have to be games. You could like figure out an issue that you're having with games. There's like so many different ways. Yeah, problem solution and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've heard that your real customer is your distributor when you're making a product. You know, like for games, it would be like Steam or GOG or what have you. Where does that fit into getting funded, or does that happen entirely after?
I'm not entirely sure. I've never actually heard that. That's a really good perspective to take. Yeah, that's a really good perspective to take, because the only way you're gonna get your game out there is actually your distribution. On that note, I'd like to mention that I have heard the only way, or not the only way, like the best way that you're gonna make or like kind of change or reach a larger market is trying to figure out your distribution. That like distribution is actually very, very important. That's like your own marketing channels, your community and all that, to try to do that. But selling to, I don't know, I mean, you're still kind of selling to customers on Steam, right? And then you're trying to get them to waitlist. And if you get as many waitlists as you can, that shows Steam that you should be on the front page, which leads to more downloads. So I guess in that case, it's like you're trying to sell to your distributor by using your platform or using their platform to get as many waitlists as possible, which is their KPI to show that there should be people downloading this game, and then it'll just like blow up out of nowhere. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. So, oh yes.
Like, is the localization like,
In my opinion, I think that's a little bit later, but it is something to be thinking about as you go on. Maybe that is your like advantage to reaching a larger market, and if you're able to do it in an efficient way, like that's you're solving an issue there.
like for some games, some compared like with I don't know, loyal or large company.
Yeah, that's awesome if you can get your community to do it for you. If they're also asking for it, that means you should do it, and that goes into your KPIs. That's like your info that you're getting from your community, which is your player base. And so it matters once you. That's a little bit later, actually. Yeah, or at least when you launch, you don't want to worry about that when you're just developing. You want to pick a very specific market and go from there. That's also actually something that we learned was along with testing your market, try to narrow as possible to get the people that will sign up or whatever you're trying to do, get them to download, get them to sign up, get them to join your Discord 99% of the time. At least maybe 100% of the time. Try to get the people that or that will do that as many times as possible, then you could expand past it. But yeah.
Yeah, how do you work with the community, especially like as developers? A lot of times, if you like AAA studios, they like to keep things on their wraps, and that's also because they don't want to like spoil a game, but also it works for them. But how do you work like for an indie studio? How can you work with the community, and like what can you share, what can you not share, and like basically how do you get the attention of people while keeping things like for the big end, the enterprise?
Like modding, like modding.
Yeah, how would you work with your community? I guess there's just like you said, there's so many different ways to do it. You could either just stay silent and not do anything with your community, or you could be as open as you can. We talk about this all the time. We're trying to figure out how transparent we want to be and how open we do want to be with our community. Um, like if we don't, I don't know. I would rather have a community that's or have a dev that's open, in my opinion, rather than a dev that's not open and then you just don't know what the hell's going to happen next. Or it's also more engaging. So honestly, for indie studios, it's more advantageous most most of the time to have an open community or be transparent with your community because it drives more engagement and leads to people being a little bit more bought in to be your champion and be somebody who will spread the game and spread everything through word of mouth or through their own social channels and stuff like that. So transparency is really crucial in like for a small studio. Big studios can not be transparent because they have that distribution network, they have that name, they have the weight to throw around where they can just like not say anything and then all of a sudden like, oh, we dropped this, you guys should play. So um yeah, if you have that name and like that advantage to just all of a sudden release something and it will reach critical mass like Apex Legends, they just kind of stealth launched and all of a sudden wham bam, but it had Titanfall beforehand, right? So um yeah, I think it's more advantageous to be transparent. Also, yeah, please sign up for our playtest. I saw some of you guys scanning the scanning the QR code, but yeah, yeah.
When's the next playtest event?
We're planning ours right now. We're trying to have it either next week or the week after, right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 2 weeks ish. Yeah, so coming up, we're gonna have I think 2 bone sets in. Meaning we'll have like makes it like 8 different build combinations that you could possibly have. Should be fun. Yeah.
So I just joined the Discord and I'm wondering, is that it? Or just wait? I got the votes for the general chat, I got the announcement, so I just wait there or?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
There's like a
Yeah.
thing with like wallet connect.
Yeah. So we're we're like we're testing the waters with blockchain Web3 stuff. We have been testing the waters for that and using it as like an experimental, just emerging technology to build upon eventually. We're gonna launch our game without anything on top of it first to make sure we're hitting like the right gamer market instead of just traders and stuff on blockchain. So there is like there's holders. We also have like free ones in the wallet, but yeah.
So as like over in US, do you guys think, you guys plan to hold like a all party like go for all the USC students? Like something like that?
Yeah, eventually we will. Once it's like ready, we want to do them periodically. We'll plan those out, hopefully. We definitely do want to do events for playtesting. Is that all? Yeah. No further questions? Okay. Thank you guys.
I know that guy.
Right.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeron. For, oh, yeah. Thank you, Jeron, for coming to the playtest. Not playtest. For presenting about startups. Next week, everyone give another round of applause for Jeron because he's been out. And next week up on Mega's speaker list, we have a person from that's doing teaching world design. So come up next week if you want to build your own world. Thank you. Thanks for attending this meeting. And if you're watching this on Zoom or in person, we will post a recording later. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for speaking. You did great.
Yeah.
Loved your presentation.
Thanks.
I just need a.
That's